Hi everyone, welcome to the Publishing Performance Show. Today I'm really happy to be joined by Daniel Hurst, who is the best-selling author of lots of books. We don't even know how many books there are at the moment, so welcome to the show, Daniel.
Thank you, thanks for having me.
How many books do you think you've actually got now?
It's in the 70s, but I need to check. And obviously it changes all the time because I'm bringing new ones out and then I lose count. And then, so I'm going to say 75 maybe.
You need to get a counter for the shelf behind you so that we can see what's going on.
Yeah. I've not got all my books up there either. And then I get translations now, so it's kind of throwing me off. I'm not counting them in the total, but I don't know.
Well, thanks so much for joining me. It's nice to speak to a British person. So often I speak to a lot of American people on here, so it's nice to speak to someone a bit closer to home.
Yeah, great. Yeah, no worries.
Well, why don't you tell me a bit about your background and what got you into writing in the first place?
Yes, so it was always the childhood dream. It was always something that I wanted to do. So as a kid, I'd watch a movie or a TV show, and then I'd find myself with an A4 piece of paper lying on the carpet, making up my own episodes of that TV show. Or if I watched a James Bond movie, I'd start writing my own James Bond action. And it's probably just regurgitating what I'd seen on the screen. He's jumping off mountains with a parachute. But I'd do like one A4 side of paper and then give it to my mum and dad. And I presume they read it. I don't know. They might have just kind of said, yeah, we've read that, and handed it back. But I just used to do that throughout my youth and into my teens. And I'd make kind of a 30 book. So I'd draw a front cover. I'd write a story. I'd do the back page. I used to do the barcode on the back. It's only like 4-page book. But I used to think, yeah, I've written a book here. And I was always an avid reader as a kid as well. So that was my youth. And then I guess I always told myself, I'll be a writer when I'm older. That's what I'll do, because you just assume as a child that it's as simple as that. And then you get older and you go out into the world and you realise you need to get a job, you need to pay the bills, and suddenly that dream kind of went on the back burner. And I wasn't sitting down to type as much as I was sitting down to write as much as I used to.
Yeah. What job did you have before you went full-time into writing?
So I've had many jobs. I've worked in offices, I went travelling, so I've worked on bars, that kind of thing. But the job I had just before I became a full-time writer was as a procurement officer, which sounds pretty dull.
Sounds like a good name for a thriller.
Yeah. So it was my job to order things, whether it's for the office, like stationery, or, the paper, or, anything that they might need. I would get free quotes and, people would come in and try and sell to me and I would choose the best one.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make it sound as exciting and fun as possible, but I absolutely hated it.
So were you writing alongside your job for a while?
So for a few years, I've still had the dream of doing it, but it was, if I had a spare night, maybe I'd sit down and write something. And then, so I felt like I was working towards it, but I actually wasn't getting anywhere. And then I got married in 2019 and I suddenly thought to myself, okay, the next step will be at some point we'll have a house and then we might start trying for children. And I thought if I start getting all these extra responsibilities, I'm never going to have time to try and pursue, my writing dream. So I did then make the decision to try and use every spare minute I could outside of work. So in the evenings, weekends, my lunch hour, I'd get up early before work. And as the months went by, I just started to pour myself more and more into as much time as I can. Let's get some books out there and see what I can do.
Yeah. And can you remember, did you follow a particular system or a particular process with your writing? Was there anything that helped you to really get that structure of, okay, in writing, I'm going to write this amount of words or I'm going to write this amount of chapters? Did you have a process you followed?
Yeah, so when I first started, I was always quite bad at, the new shiny idea. I would jump onto something, so I get halfway through and then, new idea, jump on that. Yeah. I probably did that for a few years. So I was always writing, but nothing was ever finished. And then I started a few podcasts about self-publishing. And I found, Facebook groups where people were talking about doing this. So it seemed like, okay, there's some people that have somehow managed to, earn enough money to do this. I need to just get the discipline to figure out how I can do it myself.
Yep.
So then when I did commit to writing a book, the first thing I told myself was like, whatever I start writing, I've got to finish it. I can't keep jumping between stories because, the years will go by and nothing gets finished. So it just became about, I'd set myself, okay, I want to do 500 words tonight or 1,000 words. And then over time, so I get faster at typing and, get more confident with what I was doing. So it did just become a discipline thing of how many words I want to do, how many chapters I'm going to do today. And as I got faster and faster, I could kind of figure out how many weeks it'll take me to get a first draft. So if I dipped below that, I knew I wasn't working as hard as I could do. So yeah, I guess it was one of those things where you look yourself in the mirror and like, do you want to do this? And the answer is yes. It's like you've got to give it everything you've got, because as any author knows, you can't just go onto a job website, pop in your CV and get a job as an author. You've kind of got to make it yourself. It's quite, you've just got to conjure it all up from inside you and put it out into the world. So yeah, that kind of requires so much. So it's nice to think it's just about creativity and sitting down with an idea, but it's discipline and persistence and all those kind of not as exciting words, but yeah.
Yeah, of course. And the targets you set for yourself, was it number of words written? Was that that's how you got from being like, okay, I finished the amount of work I need to do for tonight. I've done 500. That's enough. Was that the sort of process you followed?
Yeah. So it was, kind of building blocks of a book. So if you sit down to do 70,000 word book, you're going to get overwhelmed because it just seems a huge amount. But if you can chip away 2,000 words a day or 1,000 words, straight away you can think 1,000 words, that's 70 days to get a draft. So you can start to make it more manageable. And when I found these Facebook groups, there were people in there that were, writing 10,000 words a day. And it just completely blew my mind. But then I thought, if they're physically capable of doing it, I've got no health issues that would stop me from doing that. So can I, over 6 months or a year, build myself up to do that?
Yeah. One of my first interview guests I had on here was Craig Martell, and he said that sometimes he wrote like 10,000 words a day. And I was just like, how do you do that?
Yeah, Craig Martell, he's been a big inspiration.
Yeah.
Obviously, his group, 20 books, 50K, that was the Facebook group I'm kind of alluding to. And yeah, people in there just, you've got all the ends of the spectrum. You've got people who do one book a year, and you've got people who do one book a month. And I just kind of, I guess every author, you find where you fit into that.
Yeah.
And for me, I had the energy and the time, so I was like, I'm gonna try to do a book a month as well.
Yeah, amazing. Now, when you got your first book out, you were writing. It sounds like you were writing a couple at a time because you had that shiny object syndrome, which everyone gets. So, which was the first book that actually got released?
Yeah, so when I first discovered the self-publishing world, all the advice was to write a book in series. So I was in London at the time. I was getting the tube every day, and I had all these ideas about all these different people on the tube. Where were they going? What were they doing? So I kind of made a series of all these characters on the tube with different stories that interconnected. And my idea was to do a series of that. We keep revisiting the characters, different settings, different scenarios. And I did that over time. And it was getting some readers, but I found that for me, the series wasn't to market, so it wasn't exactly taking off. So I was enjoying what I was doing. The readers who found the books seemed to enjoy them, but it was still a million miles away from ever being something that I could quit my job and do. So then I decided to try a standalone book. And because psychological thrillers tended to be my natural voice, what I gravitated towards, like, ordinary situations, and then something unusual happens. I did a standalone book called Till Death Do Us Part, put that out, ran a few Facebook ads on it, and it wasn't like it took off and went to number one or anything, but it started, I could see the difference between that and the series that I was doing and the interest. And I quickly realised, okay, if I can just get a few more books out like this, I'll be able to quit my job and do this full time.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me, standalones were the big difference maker.
Right. And so Till Death Do Us Part. So tell us about how you got the ideas for that and what your process was like for getting that written.
Yeah, so that book for me is like the most special one, not just because it allowed me to quit my job, but because I'd committed to writing about a year before. And it's like I say, I was writing every spare minute I had. So I was sacrificing, watching TV, relaxing with my wife. There's times when my friends were going to the pub on the weekend, I wasn't going. And then when we went into COVID lockdown, I know many people kind of completed Netflix in that time and used it to kind of chill out or exercise. I was just writing all the time. And I was definitely getting to the point where I was burnt out and I wasn't seeing much success or rewards from all that hard work for a year. So when I committed to doing a standalone, I just sat down and I felt, I've already given it a year of everything I've got. I don't want to waste any more time by, doing an outline and, thinking over it too much. So it just kind of poured out of me. So it was just a simple husband-wife situation, alternating chapters from their point of view. And it was basically like the husband's got a secret, the wife doesn't know it, so she thinks he's perfect. So you kind of flit in between these two different views. So obviously the reader's in on the secret, the two characters aren't. And I completely pants the whole story. I didn't plot it out. It's about 60,000 words. I got to about 50,000 words without knowing how it's going to end. And then I just thought of like an incredible twist, which I ended up putting in, and which I think helps, make the book successful. Yes, that was it. It was just, if I ever go back and read the first few chapters, I just realised like how kind of raw and unfiltered it was. It was just me, just kind of, it felt like in a way it was my last chance. I don't think I'd have given up, but I was so tired, and I was like, I need, please, this has to work. I can't keep getting up at 5 a.m. and writing before work. And so it was just get words down on the page, see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, amazing. So you literally had no idea where the plot was going to go at the end. Did you just get there and you think, I've got to end this at some point?
Yeah, I was aiming roughly for about 60,000 words. I actually did this for the first few standalone self-published books. Yeah, just kind of completely pants them, because I just didn't want anything to slow me down. When I started typing, I didn't want to think, okay, what's going to happen next? And then, if you're staring at the blank page for too much time, you get in your own head, and then you can't, what should I do? You're overthinking the first sentence. And then, because it felt like I was trying to maximize my spare time into writing, when I did have that time, I just wanted to get words down. I wanted the word count to be going up.
Yeah.
So yeah, just if I had an evening to write, I'm thinking like 2,000 words. I'm not going to spend an hour in the outline stage plotting it, because, and also again, I guess the more time I spent on outlining, the risk of shiny new idea comes in and I jump onto something else. So
yeah, of course. Why were you aiming for 60,000 words? Was that something, just a number that you thought seemed manageable, or is that just, what was the reason for the 60,000 words?
Yes, I feel anything under is probably a bit too short for a standalone book. But yeah, I guess anything bigger, like 70, 80 seemed, a bit overwhelming. And also I didn't know if anyone's going to read it, is it going to go anywhere?
Yeah.
I didn't want to write some kind of 90,000 word masterpiece that nobody reads. So I kind of hit in the middle, 60,000. It seems, manageable. And I was getting to the point where I could write maybe 5,000-6,000 words in a day. So in my head, I was like, well, that's 10% of a book. So it's only, yeah. I'm not that quick anymore. I don't have the energy, but yeah, I guess a lot of it was just desperation, like get faster. And like I said, there was people in Facebook groups that were doing 10,000 a day.
Yeah.
So I knew it was possible. It was just, it's like going to the gym. You've got to build it up.
Yeah.
So somebody hears this, think, oh, I can never do that. It's like, I used to think 500 words a day was, my absolute maximum. Then I thought it was 1,000. Then I thought it was 2,000. So you do build it up.
Just a bit of practice, and you just sort of get better at all the different processes.
Yeah, I guess it's like mechanics as well. Like your hands will just get faster at typing, so that helps. Your brain will, the more you're engaged in the story, your brain comes up with the next sentence quicker.
Yeah.
And I try and end each chapter on a bit of a hook. Obviously, it keeps the reader going, but for me as well, if I hook into the next chapter, it makes me want to write the next chapter.
So that's what I was going to come on to next. So let's go into that in a bit more detail. So your books are kind of psychological thrillers mostly, or that's the sort of genre you go for. And so one of the things is you've got that hook at the end of the chapter. So how do you approach things like the suspense and the pacing? Do you have like a way of getting those bits of details down before you start writing, or is it just a case of you've got them in the back of your head and you just start writing?
Yeah, so these days I do structure out a full outline before I write. So a basic each chapter, what happens, but I don't always know how I'm going to hook at the end of the chapter until I'm almost at the end of the chapter.
Yeah.
I think obviously I've done it so much now, I'm used to getting towards the end in my head. Okay, 200 words to go in this chapter. Right, let's start making it exciting so the reader wants to carry on.
Yeah.
But yeah, in psychological thrillers, it's kind of known as a genre where there's at least a big twist at the end. And if you can add more twists before that, fantastic. So yeah, I guess as I was writing it, I was trying to come up with ways where you're taking the reader one way and then you can, you take them another way halfway through. And then, if you can get that big twist, the twist it till death is a big one. I can't say that all my books have got such a big twist at the end. And it's quite hard to come up with. I think sometimes the best twists are the ones where if you're writing it, and you don't know where it's going as a writer, then the reader's never going to guess. So that's the best twist. Whereas if you've got a really good twist in the outline stage, as you're writing it, you're probably seeping in a few things that are setting the seeds, but then the reader might pick up on it. So yeah, there's definitely something to be said about pantsing and plotting. Like both of them have got the strengths, but just these days, I think pantsing is a bit too stressful to write. So many words and not know how it ends.
Do you find that you still do that pantsing like whilst you're writing? So you'll have that structure outlined, and then suddenly you'll just think of something else, and you think, oh, well, maybe I've got to rewrite this whole section.
Yeah, so when I do the chapter outlines, it's quite short. I don't want to give myself the whole thing because then it just feels like you're just going through ticking off, painting by numbers. So there's definitely room to go off on tangents and different things. And when I work with a publisher now, I do tell them that, okay, here's the outline, but if I get halfway through and something comes to me, I'm going to try and weave that in as well. Yeah, that obviously having an idea in a moment is the most exciting thing as an author. So I want to keep the space for that.
Yeah, definitely. Now, you mentioned before, like the first book you released, that was almost enough for you to essentially quit your job. So what did that feel like? What was that did you have a particular sort of monetary aim in mind to sort of replace your salary, or was it just a case of let's just get this first one and see how it goes?
Yes, it was definitely just replaced the income that I had from my office job. So it wasn't a high-powered, high-paying job. I was probably like the lowest paid person in the office. So it wasn't like I was trying to hit 6 figures a year or anything crazy like that. I think I was on about 35,000 a year. It's made like $2,500 a month, something like that.
Yeah.
And I would have probably quit a bit under that. I was quite happy to just get bare minimum wage and, struggle for a while. But my wife obviously wanted to see a bit more.
Yeah.
So she was like, if you can get yeah, I know. Yeah, so she was like, if you can earn what you're earning from your office job, then obviously, there's no issue. So it didn't seem like much, but that still seemed a huge goal to reach. So in my head, I was kind of thinking about £100 a day, if I could just get to that. And when you're earning £0 or £5 a day, it seems just so far away. So yeah, when I KDP self-publishing dashboard, and it was approaching that 100, and then the next day it was still up there, I was thinking, oh my God, like this is everything I've ever dreamed of. Like I can't believe this. Yeah, I remember sitting in the office opposite my boss. We're both on our computers, and I was checking Amazon, like till death, how's it doing?
Yeah.
And it was kind of going up the charts. It was, it was probably only just in the top 1,000 or 800, so it wasn't anywhere near the top. But for me, having never been anywhere like that, I was like, oh my God, this could be something. And I remember just thinking my boss has got no idea that I've got this thing going on in the background. Like my dreams coming true before my eyes, and that she's probably thinking, right, I'm going to make Daniel do this afternoon, and we've got this meeting.
That's amazing. And so with your books, you've had a couple that have been gone on to bestseller. So let's go through some of the marketing strategies that worked for you, both for your first book to get it to replace your salary, and also the marketing that worked to really get your books up into the top levels.
Yes. So when I started, I knew I wasn't. Obviously, you've got to be a bit of a salesman if you're going to self-publish. You've got to sell yourself. But I didn't want to spend all my time doing the marketing because, one, I didn't have the knowledge or the experience, and two, my dream was to be a writer, not to be a marketer. So I kind of discovered the things that seemed enjoyable. So doing a newsletter, that's a big thing for self-publishers. And I decided to do one every single weekend, where some people might do one a month, or they might just do one when they've got a new book out. I thought, okay, every Sunday morning, I'm going to send a newsletter, just tell my readers what I've been up to, and then obviously any book news. And I enjoyed that because it didn't feel like I was selling. It was just, here I am, this is what I've done this week. And obviously when I started, there wasn't many people reading those newsletters, but I just carried on doing it anyway. Yeah. And also I knew the two big advertising platforms for self-publishers was Facebook ads or Amazon ads. And I watched a couple of videos on both. Straight away, Amazon ads completely confused me. So I was like, I'm not doing that. I've no idea how that works. And to this day, I've still never done that on the self-publishing.
You've never done any Amazon ads at all?
Not myself, no, never.
Oh, wow.
So now I'm with a publisher. They run some Amazon ads for me, but I just couldn't figure it out. Yeah, so I just do Facebook ads because that seemed quite easy in comparison. And even that was very basic. Most people would do Facebook ads on the desktop. I had the app on my phones. I just did the very bare minimum.
Yeah.
Front cover of my book, tagline, couple of sentences at the top. and then just the link to Amazon. And because I didn't have much money when I started, it was maybe £5-10 a day budget. So I always felt like I'm going to have to do multiple books rather than, write one book and then hammer the advertising. It was always bring a book out, advertise it for 3 weeks, but in those 3 weeks, I'm writing the next one.
Yeah.
So I've got something new to advertise. And I was always looking at it like the 20 books, 50k model. Rather than having one bestseller, can I have 10 or 20 books that are just making enough each for me to do this? But yeah, I wanted to make sure most of my time was writing, not marketing. And fortunately, I've always been able to do that, which is why I can write so fast, because a lot of authors say, you've got to spend your morning writing, but then your afternoon marketing.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I'm spending my morning writing and my afternoon writing. That's what I want to do. That's a dream. So that's what I did.
Yeah. And so now you write, how quickly do you write your books? Because you've basically produced lots of books each year. So how long does it take you to write one book?
Yeah, so when I went full time, obviously having the whole week available to write and all the excitement and enthusiasm I had with that, I was just writing, all day from morning till night. So I could get a draft in like 2 weeks. And then I slowed down a bit, but I was still very much Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, just writing the whole time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was comfortably doing 7, 8, 9, 10,000 words a day. And I got to the point where it didn't feel like it was too difficult, because I'd maybe do 1,500 words an hour.
Yeah.
So 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours in the afternoon, it's like 9,000 words a day. I'd still find time to go for a walk or go to the gym. So yeah, I did that for a couple of years, and I guess there was always that fear and paranoia, because I still remembered what it was like to work in the office that I hated. So I was like, this might all go away any minute, so maximise it while I can, give my readers as many books as possible, get all my ideas out. Yeah, so I did that for a couple of years, and then me and my wife had a daughter, so obviously that slows everything down.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely don't write as fast as I used to, but I guess from the outside, anyone would still see how many books I've got out and think, oh, he's not slowed down at all. But I know in myself, I've definitely slowed down. But I do try to get a draft in 3 or 4 weeks maximum, just because it still feels fresh for that amount of time. And after a month, it starts to get a bit, okay, I want to move on to a new idea. So if I get it finished in a month, I know it's still fresh.
Yeah. Right. So you actually kind of get bored with your own writing by the time you've finished your first draft.
Yeah. If it starts to get 3 or 4 weeks in, if I'm near the end, it's fine. But if I'm only halfway through, I'm thinking, it starts to feel like a bit of because I'm already thinking of the next thing. Yeah.
And do you work with an editor with your books as well?
Yes, I've got someone who. So with me self-publishing, it's more just an edit of tidying it up and the grammar and the sentencing and the apostrophes and all that. Commas.
Right. So you basically just go for line editing with self-publishing.
Yeah, so with my self-publishing, it's kind of just the freedom of, this is my idea. This is what came to me in this month, so I'm just going to put that out there. And then I was approached by a couple of publishers since the success of the self-publishing, and obviously they go through much more story development. Different rounds of edits. It's good because they'll push me to try. I've got a draft, and they'll think, oh, what if we try this? And they'll make it better. It just takes more time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can see the value of both, but I do enjoy the self-publishing, because it's very much, if you've got your idea, you can just keep that whole idea intact. Nobody else is going to try and mold it and shape it into something. And I think that's one of the reasons I had this success, because when I first started self-publishing, to be honest, I couldn't name dozens and dozens of psychological thriller authors. I didn't know who the bestsellers were in my genre. I just had an idea, so I started writing it. And when you do work with publishers, obviously it's a business, they're data-driven, so they will try and steer you towards something that they think will definitely work.
Yeah.
So you definitely more of a framework. So I'll do a couple with my publisher, and I'll set some time, think like the next book self-published, I can do whatever I want. My title is my title. It's not going to be changed. So I enjoy the freedom of that. And it feels like I'm just starting again when I do that. So it's quite exciting.
Nice. And so with your books now, you've got some that are self-published and some that are published. How do you balance the difference between being published and self-published when you're writing different books? And also, how do you decide which ones you're going to self-publish and which ones you're going to go through the publishing route?
Yeah, so I guess I would call myself a hybrid author now.
Yeah.
Can't be in one camp or the other, I'm in between. So obviously when my publisher says, okay, shall we do a couple of books together? Then I'll just come up with some ideas. We'll go back and forth, we'll have Zoom calls. and then we'll eventually settle on a couple of ideas. If something comes to me at any point in the year, I think, oh, I'm excited by that, and I come up with maybe like a unique title. But back in my mind, I'm thinking, well, if I go to my publisher, they'll probably change the title. They might try and steer me another way with the story. I think, well, I'll keep that one for myself. So it's kind of on the back burner. So then when I'll do my 2 books with a publisher, and I think, right, let's do a couple of self-published books and then go back to the publisher again. So yeah, it's nice to just kind of go between like both worlds. And I've definitely reached a much, much bigger audience with going with a publisher than I ever could have done on my own. Yeah, I mean, I guess I could have reached more, but again, because I don't want to spend all my time marketing, I don't want to spend too much money marketing. There's always going to kind of be a ceiling with self-publishing. Teaming up with a publisher as well, there's been translations, audio books have been created. So I've definitely reached, the paperback gone up much more. So yeah, I can see working with a publisher there's so many more avenues that I wasn't going into. But self-publishing for me is more about, I guess, the ebooks and the Kindle, page reads, that kind of thing.
Yeah, nice. Now, when you speak to, I guess you must speak to authors a lot who are like new authors and wanting to get into writing and things like that, because your backstory is so inspiring that people must want to hear from you about like how they can get started as well. So are there any particular mistakes you see that new authors make quite often? And is there any tips you got for avoiding them?
Yeah, I guess I think back on some of the mistakes I made. It's funny because when you go into it and you hear all the, there's YouTube videos about don't make these mistakes, and you think, I'll never make them. And then for some reason, it's like you have to go through it and make all the mistakes before you get to what works. So, for example, writing a book and then thinking, I don't need an editor. So you just put it out and then it gets, pulled apart because people are saying the grammar, it's a good story, but the grammar's not good.
Yeah.
Or thinking I can design my own front covers. I tried that myself. Absolutely terrible idea. Yeah. So there's all these obvious things. So it's like if your strength is writing, stick to that. But then understand that editing, cover design, that's another skill and expertise. So get somebody else that can do that. And also, one of the things I get asked from people who email me and asking they want to be authors, usually the question is, how do you write so many books? How do you write so fast? And it's difficult because it's not an exciting answer, but it's like it is just sitting down and typing words and getting faster at it. I guess a few years ago, I didn't appreciate perhaps how much time I had, especially when I went full time, because we didn't have a daughter then, so I could just write all day and into the evening if I wanted to, and stay up till midnight and get up at 6, and So I feel like now, okay, if people have got a couple of kids at home, it's not as easy to do that. So it is just about finding time in your day. Some people probably need to look at it and honestly think, if I'm working a day job that's got nothing to do with writing, and my dream is to be a writer, what am I doing in the evenings when I get home? Am I watching TV? Well, that's not going to help get you anywhere closer to what you want to do. Am I spending all weekends going out doing things? It's like, can you reduce those hours? Instead of watching TV every night, can you only watch it 2 nights a week? Instead of going out every weekend, can you have a couple of weekends that you keep to yourself? And, it's not an exciting answer, but that was the biggest thing that made a difference for me when I said, I'm going to use all my spare time for writing rather than, sitting on the sofa or going out to the pub. Mm-hmm. And it was, that's what made a difference, and committing to that. And, you have to sacrifice something if you want to. If you want your dream, you've got to sacrifice something. There's no other way about it.
Yeah, definitely. And also the benefit to reducing that stuff is when you do finally go to the pub, it's way more fun.
Yeah, it is nice. Yeah, I was at the pub last night actually with a couple of friends, and obviously there's times where they'll say, "Oh, it's all right for you. You don't have to go to work tomorrow." Or, I wish I was my own boss. And,
yeah.
But
it's that thing that Jimmy Carr said, isn't it? Everyone wants to be on the stage, but no one wants to do the work in the back end to get to that point, and they don't.
You want to
see the fact that Jimmy Carr's waking up at 6 a.m. every day to write 20 jokes and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I read Jimmy Carr's autobiography actually. That was quite inspiring. It's all about the hard work it takes to follow your dreams.
Amazing, that book. It's called Before and Laughter.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, I read it a couple of years ago. Yeah,
really good book.
But that's what I say as well. If people listening to this thinking, but I don't want to sacrifice all the time with my family, or watching TV or weekends. You don't have to do it forever. It's a certain amount of time. If you can commit to whether it's 6 months or a year, if you can do it and make it work and you become a full-time author, you've got the entire week, to play with. So today, actually, I've not done much writing. I've been to the gym. Obviously, we're doing this podcast. So it's not as if I'm just still waking up and, I've got to get 10,000 words done. I've got no time to do anything.
Yeah.
If I want to just go and watch TV after this, I can. Now, obviously, I'm not going to go the other way and not be disciplined at all, but it doesn't have to be one thing or the other, writing and everything else is neglected. You can do it for a short time and then reap the rewards afterwards.
Yeah, definitely. Now, before we go on to the books you're like currently working on, your sort of upcoming projects, what are the books that you've previously written that were like maybe either they're the bestsellers or they're the ones that really turned the dial in terms of getting you like more famous, for want of a better word?
Yeah, so self-publishing, I think my success grew just from being consistent and rapid release, books coming out almost every month for the first couple of years. So the readers I got, they just knew that I'm never going to have to wait too much time for Daniel's next book.
Yeah.
So it's quite nice that once I found my readers, they would always, they read a book and they'd be like, when's the next one? Like straight away. If I had a book out yesterday, they'd be today, like, when's the next book? So it's almost like my readers I found a group that want books all the time. Mm-hmm. So the first couple of years, just being disciplined enough to keep providing those books was enough to build my self-publishing career. And then when I signed with Bookouture, we did The Doctor's Wife, which was our first book together, and it went to UK #1, which was on the Amazon Kindle store, which was a massive surprise. I never expected that. So obviously that's my best-selling book, and that's been translated into multiple languages. So I guess that made a huge difference. I think I guess it exposed me to so many more readers who perhaps either don't read self-published books or they don't find them, or whatever it may be. And it's just time. It's the accumulation of. I've been doing this now for 4 or 5 years. So something simple as your Amazon follow account. If you're a self-published author, you can. I'm not sure. I think maybe any author, you can see how many people follow you on Amazon.
Yep.
And again, like when you start anything, it's 0, then it's 1, then it's 2. So it's not going to do much. But over the 4 or 5 years, it's built into the thousands. So it just means that each new book that comes out is much easier. It's not like it sells itself, but I don't have to advertise as much because I've got the foundation, the fan base is there.
Yeah, definitely.
My Facebook page is built up all the time, my Instagram page. So it's not as if I'm having to, if a book does well, I've spent more money on it or I've pushed it more. I think it's just a gradual build up. And then there's always books that some do better than the others and you're not sure why it was exactly. But I just look at it as, I've written a book, I enjoyed that, here it is, and then now I'm on to the next one. I'm not too precious about each one has to be bigger and better. I never think that way.
Amazing. And so what are the projects you're working on at the moment and what are the new books you've got coming out?
Yes, I had a book out yesterday called The Baby Swap, which is just over there. Yes, that's an exciting one. It's one with my publisher, which means I have to write it so far in advance. So I think it was August when I wrote this one. So in my world, that's like an eternity ago.
Yeah.
It's quite funny to see people just finding it now and like, oh, I love the twist at the end. And I'm thinking, oh, what was the twist at the end again? Because I've written 6 books since then.
It's like it's like J.K. Rowling gets people coming up to her and telling her about the stories in her book, and you're like, well, I know I wrote it, but
I'm always on the next thing. And I think in a way it was a way of me when I first started, like shielding myself from the stress and the worry, because if you pour your heart and soul into a book like any author does, and you put it out there, if you just sit back and wait to see what happens, obviously it might be amazing. People might think it's the best thing ever, but there's a chance it might not do well in the charts. There's a chance it might get 1-star reviews. And if you've just put all your eggs in that basket and sat back and waited to see, and then it hasn't done well, there's a potential that it could obviously devastate you and you might not sit down and write the next book. So I guess as an insurance policy for me, it was always, okay, I finished a book, that's coming out in a few weeks, but I'm going to write the next one. So by the time that first book comes out, I've already written the next one. So I'm not going to stop if that book doesn't do well now, because I'm still going, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I still do that to this day. I never kind of rest and think, okay, I've got a book out next week and I think it's going to go well, so I'm going to, take a few months off and see. Because there's always that voice. It's like, well, it might not do well, and then, you've got to you've got to then sit down to write the next book on the back of something that's not done well.
Yeah.
It's best to keep ahead of it all the time.
Yeah. And most of your books are standalone. Have you got any plans to write any series upcoming?
Possibly. I've done a few books now, like The Doctor's Wife became a 4-book series. I've done a couple of self-published books where I've done a sequel, which I was always kind of against doing because you're worried that, if you commit to doing a sequel and then the first one, not many people read it, you think, I've given a sequel to something that nobody wants. But yeah, I've started to do that. I'm definitely seeing the value in, I used to think you do a standalone, that's the whole story. I've maximised those characters and then move on. But I'm now seeing, there's so much more I could do with these characters. So it is nice to do that. So yeah, definitely got plans to do small series, I'd say. Maybe not the big 10-book series that many people do, but 3 or 4 books I think I could do.
Nice. Well, it's been great chatting to you. It's been absolutely fascinating hearing your story. I love, looking forward to hearing seeing your new book out on the shelves. That's going to be really exciting. Could you remind me of the name of that new book that's coming out and where people can get hold of it?
Yeah, thanks. It's called The Baby Swap. So at the minute, it'll just be on Amazon. And then hopefully it does well, and then it might start popping up on some bookshelves and translations and things. Yeah, The Baby Swap on Amazon.
Fantastic. And if people want to get in touch with you or to hear more about your work, where's the best place to hear about you and sign up for your newsletter and things like that?
Yes, that'll be my website, www.danielhurstbooks.com. Not the most original name. If you go on there, it's quite a basic website as well because I did it myself.
Yeah.
If you go on there, you'll see there's a free book that you can download, and that signs you onto my newsletter.
Oh, great.
Every weekend. And it's half about my book news and the other half of just me and my wife and my daughter and what we've been up to.
Nice. Great. Well, it's been great chatting to you. I'm looking forward to seeing your more success and coming back on to hear about your new books. Yeah, thanks for coming on. We'll speak again soon.
I've enjoyed it. Thank you. Yeah.
Bye. Thank you so much for tuning into the Publishing Performance podcast. I really hope you found today's episode inspiring. I love chatting to authors, writers, and people in the publishing world. Now, just before we wrap up, let me tell you about Publishing Performance, the #1 platform for authors who want to increase Amazon book sales, but I'm not really sure where to start. Now, this show is all about helping you to sell more books. And if you're looking to boost your publishing game and to maximize your book's potential on Amazon, then Publishing Performance is designed to help authors just like you to grow your readership and to reach a much wider audience. Now, I know that Amazon ads can be slightly complicated, which is why Publishing Performance is like having a personalized ad account manager to create your ad campaigns, to choose your best keywords, and to make adjustments in real time. Now, if you're investing in ads, you really want to make sure that your investment is being used effectively, and Publishing Performance does just that. It aims to make your budget go further, improve your organic rank, and target keywords more effectively. Just go to publishingperformance.com to get started with Amazon ads for just $1.